What happens when one of television's most respected hosts faces off against a guest who refuses to play by the rules? In just 33 seconds, a single dismissive comment would turn a routine interview into the most shocking on-air meltdown daytime TV has ever witnessed. The studio lights were blazing hot that afternoon. Tamron Hall sat poised in her signature purple dress, her smile warm and welcoming as always. Across from her sat Meghan, dressed in a cream-colored outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. The audience was packed, eager to hear about Meghan's latest philanthropic ventures and her life after stepping back from royal duties. Tamron started the way she always did, with grace and professionalism. "Thank you so much for being here today. I know our audience has been so excited to hear from you." Meghan nodded, but there was something cold in her expression, something that suggested she didn't really want to be there at all. "Of course," Meghan replied, her voice flat. Tamron pressed forward, undeterred by the chilly reception. "I want to start by talking about your recent charity work. You've been involved with several organizations focused on women's empowerment. Can you tell us what drew you to this cause?" Meghan shifted in her seat, crossing her legs slowly. "Well, Tamron, I think it's fairly obvious, isn't it? Women like us, women who have platforms, we have a responsibility, though I imagine our platforms are quite different in scale." The audience went quiet. You could hear the uncomfortable shuffle of people in their seats. Tamron's smile remained fixed, though her eyes flickered with something like surprise. "I think all platforms matter when it comes to making a difference," Tamron said carefully. "Whether you're reaching millions or just a few people in your community." "Sure," Meghan said, drawing out the word like she was humoring a child. "That's a nice sentiment." Tamron cleared her throat and glanced down at her note cards. "Let's talk about your transition away from royal life. That must have been incredibly difficult." "You have no idea," Meghan said sharply. "You really have no idea what it's like to live under that kind of scrutiny. The press, the public, everyone watching your every move. It's not something someone like you could understand." "Someone like you." The words hung in the air like a slap. Tamron's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but she maintained her composure. "I've been in the public eye for over 2 decades, Tamron said, her voice steady. "I've faced my share of scrutiny and criticism. I think a lot of women in media can relate to feeling watched and judged." Meghan laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. It was sharp and dismissive. "Oh, please. Comparing your experience to mine? That's rich. You're a daytime talk show host, not a member of the royal family. There are levels to this, Tamron. Levels you clearly don't grasp." The audience gasped. Actual, audible gasps rippled through the studio. Tamron sat back slightly, her professionalism cracking just enough to show genuine offense. "I'm not trying to compare our experiences," Tamron said, her voice firmer now. "I'm trying to have a conversation with you as one woman to another. But you seem more interested in creating a hierarchy than having a dialogue." "A hierarchy exists whether I create it or not," Meghan shot back. "And I'm simply acknowledging reality. You invited me here because my name brings ratings. Let's not pretend this is some sort of equal exchange." Tamron took a deep breath, visibly trying to regroup. "I invited you here because I thought you had something meaningful to share with our audience. Was I wrong about that?" "What I have to share is probably too complex for this format," Meghan said, waving her hand dismissively at the studio around her. "No offense, but daytime television isn't exactly known for its depth." "Then why did you agree?" "To come?" Tamron asked pointedly. Meghan shrugged. "My team thought it would be good visibility, though now I'm questioning their judgment." The audience was fully engaged now, some shaking their heads, others whispering to their neighbors. This was not going the way anyone had expected. Tamron leaned forward, her elbows on her knees, her expression serious. "Meghan, I've been doing this for a long time. I've interviewed presidents, celebrities, activists, everyday heroes, and I've never had a guest sit in that chair and treat me or my show with such blatant disrespect. So I'm going to ask you directly, what's really going on here?" "What's going on," Meghan said slowly, "is that I'm tired of people like you thinking you can relate to people like me. You can't. You sit here in your comfortable little studio, asking your comfortable little questions, and you think that makes you some kind of journalist. But you're not. You're entertainment. And frankly, not very entertaining. At that." The studio went dead silent. Even the camera operators seemed frozen. Tamron's expression transformed from surprise to genuinely angry. "People like me," Tamron repeated, her voice low and controlled. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Oh, don't try to make this into something it's not, Meghan said, rolling her eyes. I'm talking about your position, your platform, your reach. You're regional at best. I'm global. There's a difference. My show reaches millions of people across the country, Tamron said. I've built my career on hard work, integrity, and genuine connection with my audience. I don't need a title or a crown to validate my worth or my impact. How noble of you, Meghan said sarcastically. The self-made woman narrative. Very American, very quaint. Tamron stood up. The audience murmured in surprise. This was unprecedented. Hosts didn't stand up in the middle of interviews unless something had gone seriously wrong. You know what? Tamron said, her voice shaking slightly with controlled anger. I've given you every opportunity to have a real conversation. I've been respectful, patient, and professional. But you came here with an agenda. And that agenda seems to be to belittle me, my show, and my audience. Meghan looked startled for the first time, as if she hadn't expected Tamron to push back so directly. I'm just being honest, Meghan said defensively. No, Tamron said firmly. You're being cruel, and there's a difference. Honesty can be delivered with respect. What you're doing is just mean-spirited. I cannot believe you're being this sensitive, Meghan said, shaking her head. I thought you were supposed to be tough. Isn't that what you media people pride yourselves on? Being able to take it? Taking criticism is one thing, Tamron said. Being needlessly insulted by a guest in my own house is another. This is my show. These are my people, and I will not let anyone come in here and disrespect what we've built. Your house? Meghan scoffed. You don't own this network. You're just another employee. Let's not get delusional about your importance. That was it. That was the moment everything changed. Tamron's face hardened, and when she spoke, her voice was ice cold. I think we're done here. Excuse me? Meghan said, sitting up straighter. I said we're done. This interview is over. Tamron turned to someone off camera. Can we get security, please? The audience erupted in shocked chatter. Meghan's face went from pale to flushed red in seconds. You cannot be serious, Meghan said, her voice rising. You're ending the interview? I'm the guest. People tuned in to see me. And now they've seen exactly who you are, Tamron said calmly. Someone who thinks their status gives them the right to treat others poorly. Someone who mistakes cruelty for honesty and arrogance for confidence. My audience deserves better. I deserve better. And quite frankly, you need to leave. This is absurd. Meghan stood up now, her voice getting louder. You invited me here. You begged my team for this interview. Your team reached out to us, Tamron corrected. And clearly they didn't prepare you for what an actual interview entails. It's not a coronation. It's a conversation. And you've shown you're incapable of having one. 2 security guards appeared at the edge of the stage. Meghan looked at them, then back at Tamron, her expression a mixture of shock and fury. You'll regret this, Meghan said, grabbing her purse from beside the chair. Do you know who I am? I know exactly who you are, Tamron said, and that's why you need to go. I have more followers than your show has viewers. Meghan shouted, her composure completely shattered now. I could end your career with one post. The audience was on the edge of their seats, watching this spectacular meltdown unfold. Tamron didn't flinch. Then I guess I'll have to take my chances, Tamron said. But right now, you need to. Leave my stage. Meghan looked around wildly, as if searching for someone to back her up, someone to tell her this wasn't really happening. But everyone was staring at her with varying expressions of shock and disapproval. This is discrimination, Meghan tried, desperately grasping for any argument that might work. This is consequences, Tamron replied. You came into my home and disrespected me, my team, and my audience. Actions have consequences, even for you. The security guards stepped closer, not touching Meghan but making their presence known. The message was clear: leave willingly or be escorted out. Fine, Meghan snapped, throwing her hands up. I wouldn't want to stay in this low-rent operation anyway. You should be thanking me for even showing up. Goodbye, Meghan, Tamron said simply. Meghan turned on her heel, nearly tripping over a cable in her haste to leave with some shred of dignity intact. The security guards followed her as she stormed off the stage, her gata report, heels clicking angrily against the floor. The audience watched in stunned silence until she disappeared through the exit. Then, slowly, someone started clapping, then another person, then another. Within seconds, the entire studio audience was on their feet, giving Tamron a standing ovation. Tamron stood there, visibly shaken, but trying to maintain her professional demeanor. She wiped at her eyes quickly, taking a deep breath. "I'm sorry you all had to witness that," Tamron said, her voice thick with emotion. "That's not the kind of show we run here. We believe in respect, we believe in honest conversation, and we believe that no one, regardless of their status or their title, has the right to demean others." The applause grew louder. Tamron held up her hands, asking for quiet. "We're going to take a quick break," she said. "And when we come back, we're going to talk about something actually important. The incredible teachers in our audience who are making a real difference in them, their communities. These are people who show up every day without fanfare, without titles, without crowns, and they change lives. That's what real importance looks like." More applause. Tamron smiled, but you could see the toll the confrontation had taken on her. As the show cut to commercial, she sank back into her chair, surrounded immediately by her producers and crew, all checking to make sure she was okay. What had started as a routine celebrity interview had become something else entirely, a moment where someone finally said, "Enough." Where someone drew a line and refused to let it be crossed, regardless of who was trying to cross it. Tamron had faced down a woman who clearly believed her status made her untouchable, and she'd shown her the door. The audience members were buzzing with excitement and disbelief as they waited for the show to resume. Many were already pulling out their phones, knowing they'd just witnessed something that would be talked about for years to come. This wasn't just drama for drama's sake. This was a stand against entitlement, against the idea that fame or status gives someone the right to treat others as less than. When the show came back from commercial, Tamron was composed again, her professional mask firmly back in place. But there was something different in her eyes, a feariness that hadn't been there before. She'd been tested and she'd held her ground. "Welcome back," she said to the camera. "As I mentioned, we're moving on to something that actually matters. I have 5 incredible educators with me today who have gone above and beyond for their students and communities." The teachers came out to warm applause, and Tamron spent the rest of the show celebrating them, asking thoughtful questions about their work, their challenges, and their triumphs. It was a deliberate choice, a pointed contrast to the ugliness that had come before. These were people who served others without expecting praise or recognition. These were people who understood that real impact doesn't come from status or titles, but from genuine care and effort. Throughout the segment, Tamron was her usual warm, engaging self, but anyone who'd witnessed the earlier confrontation could see the steel underneath. She'd shown that kindness doesn't mean weakness, that professionalism doesn't mean being a doormat, that you can be gracious and still have boundaries. Behind the scenes, Meghan's team was already in damage control mode, but the cat was out of the bag. Everyone in that studio had seen what happened. The crew had seen it. The audience had seen it. And in the age of social media, it would only be a matter of time before the whole world saw it too. But in that moment, in that studio, it wasn't about the aftermath or the fallout or the headlines that would follow. It was about a simple truth. Respect is not negotiable. It doesn't matter how famous you are, how many followers you have, or what family you married into. You don't get to treat people badly just because you think you're more important than them. Tamron had made that abundantly clear. And in doing so, she'd given her audience something more valuable than celebrity gossip or royalty. She'd given them an example of standing up for yourself and others with grace under pressure. The teachers on stage had no idea what had transpired earlier. They were just grateful to be celebrated, to have their hard work recognized on a national platform. And Tamron made sure to give them the attention and respect they deserved, asking detailed questions about their programs, their students, and their dreams for the future of education. "Tell me about the moment you knew you wanted to be a teacher," Tamron asked one of them, a soft-spoken woman who worked in an underfunded school district. The teacher smiled. It wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 small moments. Seeing a kid's face light up when they finally understand something, watching a shy student find their voice. Knowing that for some of these children, school is the safest, most stable place in their lives. "That's why I show up every day." "That's beautiful," Tamron said, and you could see genuine emotion in her face. That's what real service looks like. That's what making a difference actually means. It was impossible not to see the implicit comparison to the earlier conversation. One woman who demanded recognition and deference based solely on her status. 5 people who quietly change lives every day without expecting anything in return. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. As the show wrapped up, Tamron thanked the teachers again, thanked her audience for their patience and understanding, and signed off with her usual warmth. But everyone knew this episode would be remembered for what had happened in those explosive minutes when everything went sideways. In the control room, the producers were already discussing how to handle the situation. Do they air it? Do they cut it? Do they address it? But those decisions would come later. For now, they'd witnessed their host handle an impossible situation with dignity and strength. Tamron had been put in a position where she had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping her self-respect. She'd chosen self-respect. She'd chosen to draw a line and enforce it, even when it meant ending the interview and asking a high-profile guest to leave. That took courage. That took conviction. That took a deep understanding of her own worth and the worth of everyone on her team and in her audience. The studio audience filed out, still talking excitedly about what they'd seen. They'd come expecting a typical celebrity interview, some softball questions, some rehearsed answers, maybe a touching story or two. Instead, they'd gotten a masterclass in boundaries and self-respect. They'd seen what happens when someone mistakes patience for weakness and pushes too far. And they'd seen Tamron Hall, a woman who'd worked her way up through the ranks of broadcast journalism through talent and tenacity, refused to be diminished by someone who thought a title made them better than everyone else. It was powerful, it was necessary, and it was deeply satisfying to watch, because at the end of the day, this wasn't really about one bad interview or one difficult guest. It was about something bigger. The idea that we all deserve to be treated with basic respect and dignity, regardless of our position or platform. That fame doesn't give you the right to be cruel. That status doesn't excuse bad behavior. That we all have the responsibility to treat each other as human beings first and foremost. Tamron had stood up not just for herself, but for everyone who'd ever been made to feel small by someone who thought they were superior. For everyone who'd been talked down to or dismissed or belittled by someone who believed their position gave them that right. She'd said, clearly and firmly, that it stops here. Not in my house, not on my watch. The segment with the teachers concluded with Tamron presenting them with grants for their schools, funded by the show's sponsors. The teachers were tearful and grateful, hugging Tamron and each other. It was a genuinely touching moment, made even more meaningful by what had come before. After experiencing such negativity and entitlement, the gratitude and humility of these educators was like a breath of fresh air. "Thank you for the work you do," Tamron told them, her voice full of sincerity. "Thank you for showing up every day for kids who need you. You are the real heroes. You are the ones making a real difference in this world." As the credits rolled and the audience gave one final round of applause, Tamron stood on her stage, surrounded by people who genuinely appreciated the platform she'd given them. And in that moment, it was clear who had won this confrontation, not through cruelty or put-downs, but through grace, dignity, and an unwavering commitment to doing what was right. The cameras stopped rolling, the lights dimmed, the audience left, but the impact of what had happened remained. Tamron had faced down someone who tried to make her feel less than, and she'd emerged with her integrity intact and her head held high. She'd shown that real power doesn't come from titles or status, but from knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone diminish it. In the dressing room afterward, Tamron sat quietly for a moment, processing what had happened. Her hands were shaking slightly as the adrenaline wore off. It's not easy to stand up to someone like that, especially on camera, especially when you know the potential backlash. But she'd done it anyway, because it was necessary, because someone had to draw the line, because staying silent would have been worse than speaking up. Her producer knocked and entered, a concerned expression on her face. "Are you okay?" Tamron nodded slowly. "I'm okay. I mean, that was intense, but I'm okay. I did what I had to do." "You absolutely did," her producer said firmly. "And I'm proud of you." That took guts. A lot of hosts would have just smiled through it, let her say whatever she wanted, kept the peace at all costs. "That's not who I am," Tamron said quietly. "And that's not the example I want to set. For my audience, for my team, for my daughter. You don't have to accept being treated badly just because someone is famous or connected. You have the right to stand up for yourself." "Well, you definitely did that," her producer said with a small smile. "The phone is already ringing off the hook. Everyone wants to know what happened." Tamron took a deep breath. "Whatever happens next, I can live with it, because I know I did the right thing. I treated her with respect until she made it impossible to continue. And then I made a choice. I chose my dignity and the dignity of everyone who works on this show. I'd make the same choice again. And that really was what it all came down to. Not the drama or the spectacle or the shocking moment that would inevitably go viral, but the choice to value yourself enough to set boundaries and enforce them. The choice to say that no amount of fame or status gives someone the right to treat you poorly. The choice to stand up, speak out, and show someone the door when they cross a line. Tamron had made that choice. And in doing so, she'd given everyone watching permission to make the same choice in their own lives. To stand up to the bully boss, the entitled customer, the friend who constantly puts you down. To recognize that you deserve respect and to refuse anything less. That was the real story behind the shocking confrontation. Not just that a celebrity guest had been kicked off a show, but that a host had valued herself and her team enough to do the kicking. That someone had finally said enough is enough and meant it. That respect had been demanded and boundaries had been enforced. Consequences be damned. And as Tamron finally stood up, smoothed down her dress, and prepared to leave the studio, she did so knowing that she'd done something important, something brave, something that mattered. She'd shown that kindness has limits, that patience has boundaries, that grace doesn't mean being a doormat, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply say no, this ends now. Not in my house. The security guards had escorted Meghan all the way out of the building, watching as she climbed into her waiting car and sped away. They'd seen plenty of difficult guests over the years, but this one would be remembered. The entitlement, the cruelty, the complete lack of self-awareness, it had been breathtaking in its audacity. Back in the studio, the crew was breaking down the set, but the energy was different than usual. There was a buzz, an electricity in the air. They'd all witnessed something remarkable. They'd seen their boss stand up to someone who thought they were untouchable. And they'd seen her win, not through aggression or matching cruelty with cruelty, but through firm, unwavering dignity. Did that really just happen? One camera operator asked another. Oh, it happened, the other replied. And I don't think any of us will ever forget it. They were right. This would be the interview that everyone would talk about. Not because of who the guest was, but because of how the host had handled an impossible situation with grace and strength. It would be studied and discussed and replayed over and over, and each time, people would see the same thing. A woman who knew her worth and refused to accept anything less than respect. Tamron left the building that day with her head high, knowing that she'd set an example that would resonate far beyond that one afternoon, that one interview, that one confrontation. She'd shown that standing up for yourself isn't about being aggressive or mean. It's about having boundaries and enforcing them. It's about knowing where the line is and not letting anyone cross it, no matter who they are. And in a world where celebrity and status so often seem to trump basic human decency, that was a lesson worth learning. That was a moment worth having. That was a stand worth taking. Tamron Hall had taken it, and in doing so, she'd proven that real class isn't about titles or crowns or royal connections. It's about how you treat people and how you allow yourself to be treated in return. The explosive interview was over. The guest was gone. But the impact would last much longer. Because sometimes, the most important moments aren't the ones we plan. They're the ones where we're tested, where we have to make a choice between comfort and conviction. And Tamron had chosen conviction. She'd chosen dignity. She'd chosen self-respect. And that choice had made all the difference.